The fountains of the deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. 40 days the rain fell to the earth, and only 8 souls were left alive. And God said, "Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth." Noah's oldest son, the ancestor of Abraham, and the progenitor of the house of David. His lineage reaches even the Messiah himself. This is the house of Shem. Welcome back to another episode of Ancient Echoes. We're so glad that you guys are here joining us tonight. My name is Bronson. My brother's name is always the same, Austin. And we're here to the final grind, man, on Genesis 10. We've been grinding through these lineages and these begets. And let me tell you, I've had a really good time doing this. And we can tell that you guys seem to be enjoying it too, which was a shock to me. I didn't think we would have quite a bit of this. I thought this would be the lowest point of Genesis, Austin. Not going to lie to you, as the beget seemed to be the grindiest portion, but we've had a really good time so far.
Oh man, I'm always sad to see it go. There's a lot that we could have gone a little deeper on. We did a whole lot, but it's only so much you can do before you get into just like extreme speculation.
Right.
Now, tonight we're going to be covering the descendants of Shem, which is the by far the most well-known lineage in the Bible, because the rest of the Bible covers that. You have Eber, which is the father of the Hebrews, and you have David that comes out of it down to Jesus. So this is going to be a very interesting episode. We're going to start out in the Bible in Genesis chapter 10 in the line of Shem, and then we're going to cover everything in there and kind of give like the standard thought on this of where the territories of the descendants of Shem went, and then we're going to give a little bit of a different viewpoint. I'm excited to get into it, so let's go ahead and wrap up Genesis 10 right, and let's go ahead and go to the Bible.
Let's do it, man. I'm going to hook this screen share up. I haven't told you yet, dude, but your haircut looks good.
Oh, well, thanks, sir.
Come this way, you're very welcome. All right, let's see, F11, and we're going to be moving down here. So we are going to read the story. We've had a little bit of a criticism. So we're going to make sure that I'm going to label this out here. This is the story right now in Genesis chapter 10. So verse 22 is where we'll start, all right? So far we've got Noah. They got off the boat, all right? The Ham goofed, got cursed, and then Canaan got cursed because of his actions. We've gone through the sons of Japheth, the sons of Ham, sons of Canaan, and here we are in the sons of Shem, which is the final portion. So the children of Shem was Elam, Asher, and Arphaxad, and Ludd and Aram. Those are Shem's 5 sons there, all right? Now the children of Aram, this would be Shem's grandchildren, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. And Arphaxad, more grandchildren, beget Selah, and Selah beget a great-grandchild, Eber. Now we're going to go through that great-grandchild here. And unto Eber were born 2 sons, great-greats. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. And his brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan, we're still going down the great-great-greats now, and Joktan beget Almadad, and Shaleth, and Hazavarmith, and Jerah, and Hadaram, and Uzal, and Dikla, and Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba, and Ophir, and Havilah, and Jobab. All of these were the sons of Joktan. And their dwelling was from Mesha, as thou goest unto Sephar, a mount of the east. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. And the final verse to conclude chapter 10. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations. By these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood.
All right, guys, that's been the show. Have a good night.
That's
All right, let's go to
essentially
the top, man. Let's go ahead and give a full breakdown of this.
Let's do it.
All right, so up here we have Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Ludd, and Aram. Now with Asher, can we go back up to the Nimrod passage and let's just point this out real quick. Asher, there you go. So go to the verse before that, and let's just read this verse real quick. I'll read it real quick. And all right, it's talking about Nimrod here. And in our Nimrod video, we cover this. And it says that in the beginning of his kingdom, that's Nimrod, was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. And out of that land went forth Asher and builded Nineveh and the city Rehoboth and Calah. So we've talked about this in the Nimrod video. It seems like Asher, in conjunction with Nimrod, it seems like he was almost working for Nimrod and went out to build cities for him. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I thought
that's the reason I can think that that connection is there between the two of them there. So I just wanted to point that out, that that seems to be the same Asher that when we go back down into Shem is from the Semitic line. And we've covered this in other videos. And when you hear the word Semitic, you know, anti-Semitic gets thrown around a lot, Semitic peoples. When you go to the Oxford Dictionary and look up Semitic, what that means, very simply, is a descendant from Shem. Okay, I know there's a lot of other misconceptions about it, and it gets used in different ways, but Semitic is simply from the line of Shem. Now you have the Semitic family of languages, and that, you know, gets pretty broad. But at its core level, when you hear Semitic or anti-Semitic, to be anti somebody that descends from Shem. And that's a lot of people, and even a whole lot more if you go with the second line of thought we're going to get into tonight. But yeah, so the Semitics are the children of Shem. Okay, so let's go ahead and look into Elam here. You want to pull up the definitions, and let's see what it has to say here.
So since this is a bit of probably going to be a shorter, almost cut and dry first portion of this video, I wanted to take a second to explain what this is that we're using here. When Austin asked me to grab the definitions and I say random letters and numbers put together, we're using a Strong's Concordance. Whenever you see this on the screen, this whole blue website here, this blue letter Bible, this here is your Strong's Concordance. It's essentially a dictionary, and it shows you the exact word that was used, that was translated into English to begin with. So it kind of changes, because when people say the original text, they're not talking about the stone tablets that Moses wrote the book on. That's the original text. We don't have that anymore. What we have is the original oldest text that they can get this stuff from, whether that be from Alexandria or Byzantine or wherever. That's where they're getting these texts from. So I just wanted to take a second we hadn't really broken it down before, but just in case you were unaware of where this is coming from, this would mean that your word that was used in the original language here, that they took from that manuscript, that in particular manuscript and made into English, would have been Elam, or pronounced Elam. And so that's where we end up getting our English, or really Greek rather, changed into. So just wanted to clarify some of that. So Elam means eternity. And you see right here between these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 7, is different examples of different characters in the Bible named Elam. So again, this is just we mentioned it in our last videos, we want to make these tools just so available to everybody, to where you can use these things and work your way through it.
Go up just a little bit.
Sure.
Keep going up. A province east of Babylon and northeast of the lower Tigris. Gotcha.
The lower Tigris. So, hidden distant, Elam, a son of Shem, and his descendants with their country, also of 6 Israelites. Elam, I hear some people call it Elam, a well-known country, and people northeast of the lower Tigris. As early invaders of Palestine, allies of Assyria, foe of Babylon, abode and dispersed Israelites. They're supposedly prophesied against twice. What you're seeing here is just different references when you see that for Elam. I just hovered over Jeremiah 49, the word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet against Elam in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah. So cool to see a lot of these places here. Very cool when you go through your Bible to see where Elam is being used. Down in your lexicon, we have quite a bit down here. This is a province of Persia, in which stood the capital city Susa. Perhaps in ancient writers it included the whole of Persia, which is called by later writers, there's a Hebrew word for you. When it's used of the country, it is constrained, not sure what that word is, with the feminine. And when it's used for inhabitants, like a people, it's masculine. So that's kind of neat there. I didn't know that between the feminine and the masculine thing. But you want to check out on a map where this might be according to the Strongs?
Sure.
Here we go. Make sure I got my map right. There we are. So if I'm correct, they said northeast of the Tigris, right?
Yes, and east of Babylon. So we go in there to Iraq.
Come up a little bit.
We're using a modern map tonight. There you go. It does not have the
water
rivers
systems.
there. Yeah.
That's pretty sad. But
so, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
So Babylon will be down there in the southeastern portion of, roughly. So it would be east of there. So into Iran. And we saw that ancient writers may have used it for all of Persia. So going into Iran there and northeast of the Tigris. So I'm guessing around where Tehran is now.
Very neat. We typically see, I mean, if you've watched our Japheth video, you know that everything up here was Japheth, everything down here was Ham. This only leaves one real section of the world left, at least, in the perspective of the Mediterranean. So we're going to be over here quite a bit tonight. And as you can see, some of these is not quite as vast as Ham had so many different sons and Canaan had so many different sons. When we look into Genesis 10, the majority of these names that we see are sons of Joktan. I read in a commentary the other day that it's believed that Joktan had 33 sons.
He was a busy man.
Oh, buddy. I guess when you got a few hundred years of life. All right, so your next one is Asher or Assur, and this is pretty much self-explanatory. This is the father of Assyria. Most people know this. It's the second son of Shem and the eponymous ancestors of the Assyrians, the people of Assyria, the nation of Assyria, the land of Assyria.
And when you hear Assyria, I'm sure most of you guys know, but when you hear Assyria and Syria, it's two different people. There's Syrians and Assyrians.
Yes.
For example, there's actually a famous Assyrian now, if you guys pay attention to politics or business talk, or Patrick Bet David is an Assyrian. He was born in Iran, but he's actually of Assyrian descent. There are still Assyrians still around today. So he would take his lineage all the way back to Asher.
And Assyria is near like this modern day Tabriz, right? Right over here.
Yes. Well, I think it changed a lot. Let's pull up an ancient map.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Because there's different time periods and kingdoms expand and contract. So let's just look at, This is what I mean. It covers a lot. You see all the different places where it changes. There's a lot of wars back then, guys.
Right.
Can we pull that up in full?
Oh, my apologies. There we are.
So you have Assyria up there, Aram, the Hittites up there in Turkey.
Wow.
So yeah, about right where you said, man. But the actual empire stretched out a long ways, even into Egypt.
Right.
There's the Elam, right there.
Yep, over here on this western side, or excuse me, eastern side.
Yep, and then you have the Medes above that.
Right. And so when we start to get kind of a picture of all this put together, if you've been watching our other videos that we put together between Japheth and Ham, a lot of this is starting to become more colorful to me, man. A lot of this is making a lot of more sense. When you're seeing right here, this is Shem, but the Medes, we were saying this very well could have been one of the sons of Japheth that,
yes, Madai, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to talking about Jubilees and how the earth was divided, he was not supposed to be there.
Right.
Also, if you look on here, you have Assyria in the big letters there. Then just south of that, you have Nineveh, which we just talked about was a city that Asher built. Then if you go south of that, you have Asher right there, most likely named after Asher.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that Asher went forth and he built Nineveh. So that would make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really cool, man. I got to be honest with you. A lot of this stuff, I have learned so much by doing this with you over the past couple of weeks. It's just crazy, man.
Me too. Me too.
Even when you think you know a thing or two and you go back and check some of these things, it's just wild.
Well, if you go by other people's research too, you might know about 5 different types of things. That's why we give so many viewpoints, is because a lot of the guys, when you're looking into Shem, show you like, oh, they just had like Saudi Arabia and this little part right here and this little part right here. But then if you get into the Book of Jubilees, and whether you give it, granted, how much how high of esteem you hold that book in. A lot of people think it's Torah. A lot of people don't like it at all. It very plainly says the whole world was divided. It's not just this one little section. Noah was given dominion of the earth, and then they split it up in 3 parts. And then those parts were split up between the grandchildren of Noah. So it's not just this one little region that it seems to be made out to be, and I don't believe it is just one little region. I believe the whole earth was split up. So now we're here in our fox head, and we have some cool stuff about our fox head. Can we go, let's look in maybe Chronicles?
Sure.
I'm sorry, man. I should have told you to pull this up before.
No worries.
At the descendants of a fox head, and then let's jump over to Luke, and then we got something cool to show you. If you haven't watched the previous videos, this will be new to you. And our teachings of the Watchers, a lot of that was based upon what we're about to get into now. So let's talk about this.
Awesome. So we have another family tree. I'm going to go ahead and start in verse 4 because that's what is kind of where we are today. You have Noah, who's the son of Lamech, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Then we go through the sons of Japheth all over again. And it's Gomer and Javan, down to Ham, Cush and Mizraim, Put and Canaan. Been there before. Cush beget Nimrod, starting to sound real familiar. And then as we come down to 17, we start getting into the sons of Shem. Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, and Ludd, and Aram, Uz, Hol, Gether, and Meshesh. Now, you may notice already that some things have changed. Meshesh was once Mash. So there you go. We're dealing with name changes and differences already. And, things just change over time. So Arphaxad beget Shelah, and Shelah beget Eber. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan.
All right, right there with Arphaxad begot Selah, which he did. But let's show a little difference. Let's go over to Luke.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to look into Luke chapter 3. And when we come up here, we're going backwards now. When you start up in the beginning of the chapter, you're starting from Jesus and his lineage. And as you continue down the chapter, you're actually going into the past instead of into the future. So when we look at verse 36 here, or excuse me, 35, the son of Sirach, which was the son of Ragu, which was the son of Phaleg, which was the son of Eber, which was the son of Selah, which was the son of Canaan, which was the son of Arphaxad, which was the son of Shem.
There's an extra step there. All right,
Yep,
so let's pull up the definition there of Canaan.
I'd be happy to.
Now
So,
look at this Hebrew word here, Canaan.
ah,
This is not the same Canaan that was cursed, like we talked about in our last episode. This is Canaan. So
yes.
let's go over to Jubilees real quick, and we have a interesting side story that we're going to show here because he was left out of the genealogies in Genesis 10 and out of Chronicles, and there is a reason why. Now we're going to be spending quite a bit of time in Jubilees because Jubilees, like Enoch colors in Genesis 6 to a T, Jubilees colors in Genesis 10 to a T.
Yes.
So particularly this chapter 8 in Jubilees. Okay, so if you're like us and you like to dig deep and you're going through these, the genealogies in Genesis 10 and First Chronicles and even in Luke, you can come over here to Jubilees chapter 8, and there's all kinds of good stuff in here. Now you don't have, take it with a grain of salt. You don't have to believe it, but this will color in a lot for you, and you'll understand the division of the nations here. So let's read this part about Canaan and why he could have been left out of these genealogies early on.
I'd be happy to. So here we are in the Book of Jubilees, and this was a book that has been highly esteemed for centuries. Just gonna throw that out there by some of the greatest Christian minds.
Or
You know.
longer. Yeah.
So in the 29th Jubilee, in the first week of the beginning thereof, Arphaxad took to himself a wife, and her name was the daughter of Susan, and the daughter of Elam, and she bare him a son in the 3rd year in this week, and he called his name Canaan.
There he
And the
is.
son grew, yes, sir. And the son grew, and his father taught him writing, and he went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city. And he found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock, and he read what was thereon, and he transcribed it, and sinned, owning to it. For it contained the teachings of the watchers, in accordance with which they used to observe the omens of the sun, and the moon, and the stars, and all the signs of heaven. And he wrote it down, and said nothing regarding it, for he was afraid to speak to Noah about it, lest he should be angry with him on account of it. In the 30th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year thereof, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Melka, the daughter of Madai, the son of Japheth. And they end up having this son named Shelah. And so you start to see where this starts to catch back up with everything. And it's very interesting. As you look down here, here's still Nimrod and Peleg and all that. So it still really lines up with the rest of Scripture, guys. And it really does line up with Scripture. I'll go back to Luke one more time to show you that this isn't anything made up. We're not, saying, well, this book's telling you something that the Bible doesn't tell you. And
you wonder where Luke got it from.
Hey, it wasn't in Genesis. It wasn't in
Right.
Chronicles.
Right.
Where's that coming from? And
So either he got it from Jesus or he got it from Jubilees, one of the two. Because
Right.
in the other writings, or maybe some other writing we don't know, fair enough. But from what you can tell, if you're taking scripture upon scripture, where does it come from? Well, it seems that it comes from Jubilees.
Yeah, this is why I wanted to take a second in this teaching. We don't teach people anything, dude. We just read the Bible. In this episode, to explain what this Strong's Concordance was, so that this made sense here, that this isn't something some dude was like, well, I think it should be spelled with an M. It wasn't like that. The original manuscript that this translation came from, this was the original Hebrew word here. This was its original spelling. Your translator saw it fit to spell it this way with an N over here on the left. And so this is why I really recommend, whenever you're reading an older translation, whether that be the Great Translation, Geneva, Bishop's Bible, King James Version, whatever it is, get you a lexicon or a concordance or a dictionary. It helps a whole lot, man. It really does. But that's very interesting.
I will throw this out here. There is a theory that's going around about Canaan here, that this place where he found this writing carved in the rock was in Göbekli Tepe.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you guys are familiar with Göbekli Tepe, this is the theory. Now, I don't have any evidence to support this, but that's what the the theory is. So just something cool to throw out there. Yeah, one of the oldest sites. Now, for a while there, I believe it was considered the oldest site, and this goes back, to like 10,000 BC. Okay, go back to that map. Yeah, zoom in, please. Göbekli Tepe right there. Not very far from Mount Ararat at all. Okay, so there's another site that's close to there that actually goes back to I'm just throwing a close number out there, so don't quote me, to about 12,000 BC called Karahan Tepe in that same area. I think we're going to be doing a special Ancient Echoes episode on this. Very old, very, very, very old, and a lot of inscriptions on stone here. And it's so close to where those guys were at the time that it really makes you wonder.
Wow. How do you spell the other place that you had mentioned earlier?
Oh God, you're killing me.
All right, bro.
Karahan. Yeah, there it is. Hey, I got it right.
Nicely done. Okay, and this is not too far in distance.
Let's see if we can find it on a map. If you have a map, and we can see. There you go.
So it's a little north, yeah?
South, I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe so.
Got you. Very nice, man. That'd be really, really interesting to think that maybe some of those teachings were there. I saw something not too long ago about them saying that they wanted to fill Göbekli Tepe with concrete and make a plastic replica. I don't know how true that is, but it's...
Yeah, they're planting trees and all kinds of stuff. We'll get into it on that episode of it. I don't want to hold us up here on Göbekli Tepe because I could talk about that for a long time.
Yeah.
We might actually do a follow-up episode to the Sons of Ham, Japheth, and Shem, a little more conspiratorial episode coming up in a couple of weeks. But we're going to circle back to this and really get in deep on some of this stuff and some of these architectures. And it seems that 3 civilizations left that mountain with different building styles, and it's very interesting, and symbolism and all kinds of stuff. So we'll get into that in a couple of weeks, and we'll really dive into Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe and that some.
Wow. Very cool, man. I'm looking forward to that. Dude, I'm really excited about all the stuff we got going on. We've been in Gen 10 for so long, I just keep forgetting about the rest of the Bible. I've been looking into family trees and genealogies.
We've been Ancestry.com for the past 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. So funny. So going back to some...
let's get into some of these other folks. That was a nice little side trip.
Sounds good. So just let's go back for just a second to let you know what we've done so far. We're still just in the direct descendants of Shem. We've done Elam, we talked about Asher, and then we looked a little bit at Mr. Arphaxad there. Now your next one is Ludd, and I wanted to make a quick clarification or clarity on something that the other week when we did the Sons of Japheth, there was someone named Ludim, and I got tripped up.
That's in Ham, I believe.
Okay, thank you. I got tripped up when studying about this individual. So I kept seeing Lydia, and I was like, that doesn't make sense, until I looked up Ludim instead of Ludd instead and got a whole different location. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. So when we check out Mr. Ludd here, we come down. Mr. Ludd. We see strife. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm not one that puts a whole lot of weight into interpretations and definitions of names. How do you feel about that stuff when it comes to prophetic meaning behind names?
I know Chuck Misler was real big on it. Ooh, everything good?
Yeah, we're good.
And there is something there to it. Names mean things, and the Hebrews would change names around a lot to we've seen it in the definitions to convey what they were trying to say about a person, and we've talked about that a lot when we go through here. So that it's valuable for that, just to see how the Hebrew mind thought about it at the time that it was written. It's really hard to tell. Now, this is interesting here when it talks about the descendants of Ludd, the son of Shem, who settled in North Africa.
Yeah.
Well, he would be outside of that boundary as well. I don't know about that, man.
I don't know either. And I saw in a couple of commentaries that they said that there was one or two different sons of Shem that seem to have maybe gone in the wrong direction. And who knows? I mean, you're dealing with a lot of people here, a lot of kids, a lot of, not all of them are going to be perfect. Some of them are going to goof. I don't know how real that is, or if you really did go to Africa or not, but I don't think all of them maybe are likely to have followed exactly where they were supposed to have gone. But if we come down here and read in this Chaldean lexicon, Ludim were the Lydians of two nations, of one sprung from Shem, according to Josephus. The Lydians in Asia Minor, an opinion not improbable. So there we go. That's not Africa. Of an African people, perhaps belonging to Ethiopia, of Egyptian origin, accustomed to fight with bows and arrows. And so, to me, the Egyptian origin, maybe down in Ethiopia, that sounds more like Sons of Ham to me, whereas Asia Minor sounds more likely to be a son of Shem.
Right. Yeah, because I believe that Shem's territory may go up into at least part of what's Turkey, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Into at least the southern part of Turkey, which is with Asia Minor or Anatolia or Byzantine, or there's been a lot of names for this area.
Right.
Hold on 1 second, brother. I got a dog going crazy. Sam. Come here, my man.
Got the pup showing up.
There we go. He's a good boy. He's just a little riled up. He's half German Shepherd, half Husky, so he never stops.
It's our Ancient Echoes mascot, in case you guys didn't know.
Every time we get a sub, Sammy gets a treat.
Yeah, he's been with us since day one. He doesn't. If you've been paying very close attention, I know sometimes we're really tiny squares in the top. You'll see his little tail just kind of swinging around in the back. He's always here, man. But that's cool, bro. We talk sometimes about how the Bible says to preach the gospel to every living creature, and so Sammy gets to hang out and listen to the Bible all the time.
Yeah, Sammy's a good boy.
Yeah, man, that's awesome.
He's huge. Right. I tell him to hop up here, but he may knock off everything on my desk here.
Ruin everything. He's a big old boy, man. No worries at all, dude. We're real live people, dude. We've got dogs. You've got kids. Oh, hey, kids. I'm having a daughter. We found that out. So that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah, we'll have a baby, my fiance and I, here in November. So it's pretty exciting. All right, our next people here in the line of Shem is Mr. Aram. That's just, I don't know. I mean, it just sounds so Middle Eastern to me, Aram. Come down here. Oh, wow. Check that out. That is a lot. The Strong's translates this word from H758 in the following manner many times to Syria, Syrians, Aram, Syria, Damascus, and Syria, Makkah. That's a lot of times. 67 and 56 going into Syria. That's very, very cool. I had completely missed that while we were studying. But here we go. Aram, or Arameans, exalted. Aram, or Syria, the nation. The Syrian, or Aramaean people. Aram means exalted. And this is the fifth son of Shem. I would say that Syria had been exalted a handful of times. I think that's fair. Here we go. Aram, or Aram, from the same in the highland, Aram, or Syria, and its inhabitants, also the name of the son of Shem. Also the name of the son of Shem, a grandson of Nahor, and an Israelite. So you have quite a few people receiving this name in scripture here. If we come on down to our lexicon, it is to swell up, to exalt oneself. Now that's interesting. That sometimes in your King James Bible, I've said it before, and I will continue to say it because it's just the truth. I am very unfamiliar with other translations. I've been in the King James since I was 18 years old, and I've just never left it. It's just what I know, and I know it well. Well, I can't say I know it well, but I know it better than I did 18 years ago or 10 years ago. So when you see puffed up and exalted and things like that, now we know we exalt the name of God, right? And his name is exalted forever. That is, high and lifted up and lofty speak here. But when you're talking on the physical realm and you see these certain terms like lifted up or puffed up, swell up, that's not good. That's like being a proud person. Something almost like what you would see in the book of Isaiah, where Lucifer sits on that mountain and says, I too will ascend up into the heavens. That's exalt, right? Ascend and exalt, kind of sort of synonymous. I too will ascend up into the heavens. I too will go beyond the clouds and sit on the throne of God. And Syria, not that I'm judging anybody or know much about anything at all, but Syria is they've been fighting for a long time, and that's typically a trait you can see of people that are, spiritually puffed up, as they argue they're proud and stiff-necked, if you will. So that's interesting. I don't put a whole lot into names, if you will, the prophetic meaning behind names, but that's, sometimes there's just little cool coincidences that I think are worth picking out. But now Aram unto his children. So his children are named Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. So I'm going to take just a little second here to make sure that we are still together on the same page, and we know where we are here. There's been a lot of names. We've gone back and forth between dictionaries and maps. So let's just take a second here and reread this. Unto Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born. And so we've gone through Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And so now we've finished Shem's direct lineage, and to his next line of kin would be the children of his children. And his first set of grandchildren we're going to go through is through Aram, and that was through Syria, okay? So Syria, Aram, his children are named Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. So let's go down here to Uz for a second and see what the Uz says. Your code is H5780. And it's saying that the proper way to pronounce that is Oots. Oots. Wooded. Okay. So this is the son of Aram, the grandson of Shem. The country of Job. Now that's pretty cool. I knew that. I just hadn't quite thought about it when I was reading it. The country of Job, probably east and southeast of Palestine, somewhere in the Arabian desert. And you're going to see that this is quite a pattern when we're going through a lot of these more mainstream sources, whether it's Josephus or your Blue Letters or your Strong's Concordance. We're going to start seeing Arabia pop up quite a bit here. But this is apparently from Uz is the son of Aram, also a Seirite. So S-E-I-R, that's Seir. You might be familiar with that in the Bible, Mount Seir or Seir, and the region settled by them. This is Uz. We come down to our lexicon here. Soft and sandy earth. Very cool. Of a region and a tribe of the northern part of the Arabian desert between Palestine, Idumea, and the Euphrates, called by Ptolemy. There you go. Mr. Ptolemy. Now, this is cool. I love seeing this type of stuff, especially when I was going through this, when the man we used last week quite a bit, Mr. Gill, one thing I did respect about his commentary is that he quoted from Ptolemy and Jerome and Josephus, and it would have taken 19 books just to get what he wrote down. So it was kind of nice to go through his book just to get a whole lot of perspectives there. But according to Ptolemy, this which was to be understood of the Edomites living in Ossetis. As to the origin of the nation, different accounts are given in different places. See Genesis 10. But the scripture cannot be self-contradictory. Compare Vader's comment on the Pentateuch, the Pentat. See also the discussions respecting the site of the land of Uz and Bokard for Peleg. And he's just going to start listing a lot of different people here that wrote about it. So there seems to be a little bit of an argument on where these people came from. And understand, there is a reason for this, at least in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Austin. But when it comes to, we're not talking about Noah's sons anymore, or Noah's sons' sons. We're starting to get down into the further line. This isn't a mass continent anymore. You know what I mean? This isn't a mass country being named after these people. We're starting to get into maybe some of the capitals of the states. You know what I mean? Whereas if you would ask somebody across the country, where's the United States, they could find it. And you'd say, okay, where's California? And they might know. You say, well, where's the capital of California? Like, ooh, I'm not sure about that. That's kind of how I feel we're getting when you start getting into all these Sons of Joktan. It starts getting a little more narrow and precise, I suppose is the word for that. So anyway, our next son here is Hul, H-U-L. And Hul means circle. This is the second son of Aram and the grandson of Shem. Not much here, even in our lexicon, not much here. A district of Aramea, and understands it to be the district of Hula, near the sources of the Jordan.
Okay.
Wow. Have you got any
Not
thoughts
on
on
Hul. I don't have anything on Hul.
Yeah, no, me neither. I mean, you know, guys, we could go through this whole thing right here, but it's a whole lot of reading, and I understand we've been grinding through Gen 10, and if you've been through this and everything, these things are readily available. Austin and I both, not that we're Mr. Humble, you know, person here, but we're not the type to sit here and read from a whole bunch of other people's works and present it like as if we're the ones who did all this great research. It's literally just right here in this book. I mean, you know, when you look,
Can you get rid of that advertisement?
yeah, I'd be happy to.
Sorry, it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, so some of this gets a little on the trickier side because he's talking about repetitious names. But you can see from here, he's quoting so many different people between Junius and Gradius and Ptolemy. And so Hul ends up turning into a CH, right? And so I'm just going to read a couple of places that are geographically. Chol, Kol, Kolis, Kalua, Choluada, Kolima, Kolsa, Kolana, Kolis. And then he says, but perhaps it's probably just better to place him in Syria. So this is a little bit of kind of what happens here. But again, guys, I just don't, it feels kind of weird to me to read off someone else's work nonstop and pretend like as if I did all this research when you can just go online and Google John Gill's exposition and get anything that he has to tell you about it. And so do you have anything that you think about that, Austin? Are you interested in what Mr. Gill has to say?
To an extent, I will say, reading through like the John Gill commentary on this and most commentaries and everything I've found, it's very, very vanilla. And like anything with these genealogies, you're going back thousands of years, so there's not a whole lot concrete. I know on the End of the Canaanites video, we didn't have a whole lot on a lot of these guys. And as you get into these grandsons, it gets even tougher. There's a lot of arguments on Joktan. The traditional theory is that they were just in Saudi Arabia, and all these dudes are just in Saudi Arabia. Some reason that just does not sit right with me, and it has never really sit right with me. And I could be wrong. It's just a feeling I got. And there are other theories out there that I think are a little more accurate. But the traditional thought is that, you know, the sons of Joktan were all just in Saudi Arabia. I'll tell you what, let's go back to Genesis 10.
Yeah, be happy to. I'll close this out real quick, come up to the top, X that out.
All right, and we talked about our fox head and Salah and you know, all that, man. Now the interesting one here is unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Okay, so what do you think it means by for in his days, speaking of Peleg, the earth was divided?
I'll take you through a couple of them. My very first thought, the very first time ever reading this, was Pangea. Really, it was when I've always tried to find some type of reason or a place in the Bible that would explain this whole world being together, making it incredibly easily transversible for all these sons of Noah to be able to get to without having to take a 6 month long, a year long boat ride or whatever. Um, since then, my mind was kind of changed a little bit and thought that perhaps this had something to do with the languages. But recently, going through some of these commentaries, someone pointed out, it may have been Mr. Gill, I could be wrong on that, but it may have been Mr. Gill, who pointed out that this very well could be the earth was divided in the days of Peleg, was the earth literally was divided between Noah and his sons. That when Peleg was born, this was the time frame for that. So, but these days, I don't know, man. I really want there to be something about that Pangea thing, but I just don't know.
That's what a lot of people have thought and gone back and forth of. That's basically the schools of thought. There's really three of them that I've come across over the years, and in doing research for this video, is that one, it was the Pangea event that happened. Two, it was the earth was divided into the nations after the Tower of Babel. And or three, that it was before the Tower of Babel, and it was when Noah divided the lands in between the sons, and the sons divided between the grandsons and all that. So those are the three main schools of thought. I think I'm more on the Noah divided the lands in his days, but that's just where I'm at right now, and I could be wrong. Like we say, it's thousands of years ago, but I think I fall in that. That's when Noah divided the lands.
Yeah,
That's what we have precedence for in Scripture. I believe Peleg. Well, it really could either be the Tower of Babel or that Noah divided the lands.
wow, yeah. It gets cool. I'm sure that you're well aware of all of this. So I'm more or less just sort of commenting on this for maybe some of our audience members who are unfamiliar. But people go hard on this subject here. I mean, they break down how long the flood was, what age Noah was when he had his kids, when they think that the tower could have been or could not have been, and they really try to break down ages and stuff here. We seem to have some pretty what I would call knowledgeable people who are watching our videos quite often. I've seen some cool comments that are showing up and some neat perspectives. If you have some type of evidence for your belief on Peleg and what it means when it says in his days the earth was divided, we would love to see that in the comments, man. You said something on our last video, Austin, that I really, really admired when you said that it's so easy to get caught up in some type of echo chamber. And it's so nice to hear somebody else say something that kind of just pops your bubble for a second and go, oh, that makes sense. I like that. And you can check it out and decide whether you like it or not. But it's still good sometimes just to have your bubble popped every once in a while.
I tell you, man, just thinking about it, I used to be so dogmatic on things. It's like, oh, that's definitely what it is. Oh, that's definitely what it is. But I've been humbled so many times in my life. And the more, I know a lot of people say this, but the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of this you just got to take on faith, and that's anything. Yeah, anything to do with the scriptures, you got to take on faith. I'm not sure. I don't believe it's the Pangea thing. Me personally, I don't believe that. If there was Pangea, that would have been before the flood, in my opinion.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I believe it was all one landmass, and that would have been broken up when the fountains of the deep broke forth. That's my opinion. Okay.
Nice.
So I'm going back and forth between whether it was when Noah divided the lands up, or whether it was after the languages were confused and they went their separate ways from the Tower of Babel. So I'm about 50-50 on those two. I don't believe that was the Pangea. I believe if there was a Pangea, which it definitely could have been, I believe that the breaking apart of Pangea would have been when the flood began.
That's very nice. I'm glad you said that. That's really, really cool. There's some text out there, if I'm not mistaken, that says that after the flood, there was much more water and much less land. Is that right?
I'm not familiar.
Okay. It's somewhere in my head. I'm hearing that. I don't know where that came from. So
I
let's
believe
just.
that. I believe that to be the case.
Mhm.
Absolutely, you have the water breaking forth from the great deep, or the fountains of the deep, and then you have the windows of heaven being opened, and water falling from there. So I would venture to say probably.
Yeah.
And also, you find all these ancient civilizations, you like underwater. You find these, where it used to be land, but now it's submerged. You find that all over the place.
Yeah.
Bimini Road, just to name one of them, that used to be on the surface and now it's underwater. The Atlantis mythos that it sunk under the waters. Um, yeah, I believe that's true. That there's more water now than there ever was before the flood.
No, that
Because it
makes
also
total
says in the
sense.
Bible that it never rained. Also,
Yeah, it says that there were springs that shot water up from the earth, correct?
uh, yeah, and it'd be like a dew
Hmm.
that would cover the earth. Um, Also, there's evidences for a worldwide river system as well.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, there was water on the earth, but it never rained. And then you have like we talked about, the fountains of the deep breaking forth, and the waters coming through the windows of heaven. So yeah, I could buy that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I think you present a pretty cool case against Pangea there with the fountains of the deep. I mean, geez, if that thing bust open, I can't, like a water balloon, that it's not going to have the same shape after it busts. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It just
yeah.
would. So,
Well, that's
um,
another thing when we talked about Enoch in some of our Genesis 6 commentaries. And I made sure to make a point that when you're going and trying to follow where Enoch goes, um, there's a section in Enoch where he's taken to see everything, basically. Um, it's a little hard to follow geography in that, because everything is different now. Um, and like I said, this is thus thinketh Austin, not thus saith the Lord. But I believe that after the cataclysm of the flood, and I believe you can find evidences for that all over the world, that the whole earth was changed. So it's a little hard to follow where Enoch goes there. So if you are ever reading Enoch and trying to trace that out, it's very tough to do. I would say impossible to do, to be honest with you. You can try your best. Um, and with mountains, you might be able to find them as islands now and things like that. So keep that in mind when if you try and trace that out. But it's very hard to do, because I believe that the landscape of this place has changed a whole lot.
yeah, I think that's very, very safe to say. For someone like yourself who's so interested in geography, I would imagine that you are also fascinated probably by underwater cities and things that you find. Is that true?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, man. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. All that
yeah,
kind of stuff. There's
yeah,
a reason this channel is called Ancient Echoes. I love all that old stuff. I love the architecture. You know, I love all that stuff, man. Like I love looking into Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, all that type of stuff. Um, Even looking at these genealogies, bro. I mean, all that stuff all kind of plays together. I'm fascinated with the ancient world. I'm fascinated with these biblical times. And that draws me into the Bible. I know people have different things that do, but this type of stuff really, really draws me in, and gets me focused and trying to learn new things. And I'm fascinated by it. Really am. I'm fascinated in trying to track these people down too, because like we've talked about before in last week's episode and the week before that as well, is you have some of these names appearing, in each bloodline, and you have doubles coming up, and it confuses a lot of things for me, because you asked me several questions during the Ham episode about what do you think about this here. I'm like, well, man, I'm not sure, because there's two of them.
yeah,
There's a son of Ham, but there's also the son of Joktan. So which one is it? You know what I
right,
mean? And
right.
typically, what Bible scholars do is they take the sons of Ham and they just say, "Oh, it's just the sons of Ham there." Well, that's kind of hard to do, because there's different ones. If you're just matching a name for a name, then I mean, how do you know? You don't
Right.
have any kind of migration path. You know what I mean? And if you do, I don't know about it. So there may be one, but I mean, if you're going to say that this is, the Seba or the Havila or whatever, well, how do you know? If you're just saying that because that's the name. Well, which one is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know.
You threw me for a loop on some of those, man. I thought I had some pretty sweet questions. Not gonna lie, we were in Japheth, right? And we found this chapter in Psalms 76, maybe I think is what it was. Um, just shortly after the Psalms of David are concluded, it's in the 70s somewhere. And we found something that was like, man, this is a language that really seems like it may be a millennial reign, 1,000-year reign type of terminology here. And we're seeing certain sons, Sheba, Sheila, something like that in there. And I was like, yeah, Austin, it looks like these guys may be outside of the kingdom, paying tribute or being taxed during like the 1,000-year reign or something. What do you think? And when we looked at it, it was like, well, actually, nope, that could be completely something different. So if you're unfamiliar with what we're talking about, man, check out our Sons of Japheth episode. It leans a little more on the speculation side towards the end thereof, but, there's nothing you can do about that,
The
man.
Sons of Ham and the Sons of Japheth, yeah, just preface it all, man. Like, look, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, and I could just take like a Chuck Missler teaching or something like that and just agree right along with it, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. There's so much there that I can't be concrete on a lot of this stuff. I recommend looking at the more conventional things and then going and looking at a channel called The God Culture.
Yes.
He covers this in depth and uses Jubilees to map all this out. And we have a clip coming from him later on, and we're going to kind of show this alternative theories about where these sons of Joktan went. And he takes the stance that, when it's talking about what conventionally is thought to be the sons of Ham, that it's actually talking about the sons of Joktan, which is very interesting. And he takes straight from Jubilees and draws it all out on the map, and we're going to show that here in just a few minutes, guys. So hang with us. I know we're kind of getting long-winded in this, but there's a lot to it.
Right, sure.
So let's go ahead and keep going down here, man.
Okay, so we're in the Sons of Joktan now, all right? And again, guys, this is going to be, I'm going to do my very best to just sort of get you through this, because I'm just going to let you know you're going to see a lot of Arabia, okay? That's basically what we're going to see here is Arabia. So Almadad means not measured. Probably a foreign derivation of Almadad, the son of Joktan, Southern Arabian people. Down here in your lexicon, a people or region of Southern Arabia. They were an ancient error in reading. We might compare Morad, the name of the tribe living in the mountainous region of the Arabian Felix near Zabid. I'm just going to go ahead and go back. Again, I promise you I'm not trying to like shortcut anybody or act as if I'm not interested. It's just this is going to be very repetitive.
I was going to say Arabia.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I just,
I kind of spoiled it earlier. Sorry, guys, but if it comes from Joktan, the conventional scholarship is going to tell you a tribe of Arabia. And what do you know? A tribe
Here we go again on the next one, Arabia Felix, mentioned by Ptolemy among the tribes of the interior. And so it's in some ways I got a little disappointed when I realized just exactly what everything was saying here. Vanilla that you said is a very good term for that, because it's like, man, nothing interesting. On our last video, we had a whole section of a commentary where it's talking about 2 people were turned into snakes and went into caves and stuff. We had some cool stuff. With Shem, I found nothing.
Everything you find on Shem, other than that Canaan part, it seems to be very vanilla. But it also makes me wonder how many other people were left out. Because when we go back to Jubilees, we could talk about a little bit about that Mastema part, and demons were just terrorizing Noah's grandkids.
Yeah.
And, I have a feeling a little more than Canaan probably went the darker path, and it was distressing Noah. So he cried out to God, and we'll go and show that a little bit. We've already covered that before. If you checked out our other videos, it'll kind of be a rerun, but we'll look at that a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Village of Death.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's what I'm going to name my next kid, Village of Death.
The Village of Death, yeah, exactly.
Jeez. Some of these names.
I'll tell you what, man, that must have been a really hot section of the Arabian desert, just the Village of Death, or Khazar myth. And again, it's just a place in Arabia, a district of Arabia Felix situated on the Indian Sea, abounding in frankincense, myrrh, and aloes, but remarkable on account to the unhealthiness of the climate, hence its name. It is still called the Arabs. So that's interesting. Frankincense and myrrh is down there. I suppose if we started talking about where the three wise men came from, we would probably add an extra 30 minutes to this video. So I'm gonna.
That's debatable too, brother.
Yeah. Our next one here. Sorry, I just went right past that. Didn't even read it. Is Yerek is how you say this, Jera, and this means new moon. He's a fourth son of Joktan and progenitor of an Arabian tribe. It means a month, which new moon, a month, silly, which amongst the Hebrews was lunar, but a rarer word. Let me pull up this full entry here. But a rarer word and one used by old writers and by poets. You see it used in Deuteronomy, Job, and Zechariah. Jerah, a people in the region of Arabia of the race of the Joktanites. We get a little extra information here where Bocart remarks not unsuitably that this name in Hebrew but a translation from an Arabic name of the same signification. On this assumed ground, he understands this people to be the Eliloli, living near the Red Sea in a district where gold is found. Their true name, he conjectures to have been something I cannot read, children of the moon, so called from the worship of the moon. Maybe something like the moon people, or Elat, as to a tribe bearing this name near Mecca. More probable opinion, however, is that this understanding is to be that this is the coast of the moon. But that's cool. And the mountain of the moon.
I will say that being near Mecca, now the symbolism for the Islamic faith is still the crescent moon with the star in the middle of it.
Yeah. I was just
symbol in the ancient world for Bel Hadad, also.
Right. That's interesting there, man. I'm glad you pointed that out. Our next one is Hadaram. I'm sure there are people that watch this. We have listeners that are in other countries, and we just butcher these pronunciations, man. But
yeah, we're good Southern boys from America, man. So don't hold it against us. We mean no harm.
Right. I love Jesus. I just don't read good. So, Hadaram means noble.
I don't read so good.
Means noble honor, probably a descendant from Joktan, an Arabian tribe. There you go. Sticks to the pattern here of Arabia Felix. Yeah. Pliny and Ptolemy put them for some place called Atramate, dwelling between the Homerites and the Sachalites on the southern shore of Arabia. Very cool.
Guys, we're just we're in the Arabian Peninsula and we're not leaving.
Yeah, not going anywhere.
According to these scholars.
Yeah, I saw some of the commentaries say that some of these guys may have gone to India, but they were pulling that from the Targum, and so that was not something that I wanted to really pull up today. The Targum is something I know of, but I am not educated enough on the matter to speak about it. So,
well, that's like the Targum of Jonathan. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly the one I'm talking about. Yeah,
that's the same one where you get the serpent seed theory from, man.
Yeah, I knew that. So that was something I didn't want to pull much out of. I mean, I'll tell you what it said. It's not going to damn your soul to know it, but it was speaking of some of the sons of Joktan, quote, measured the world with ropes and placed them in India, which, India, math, geometry, measure,
I'll be honest with you, man. I do not believe all of these sons of Joktan just were in Arabia. I don't. Yeah. I believe they branched out from there. I don't believe that they're all just dividing up that one Arabian Peninsula between them. I don't. Yeah. I know a lot of the standard scholarship thinks that, but And I can't prove it, man, but I'm just telling you, something in me has always been like, no, there's something else we're missing here. Some of these lines branched out. India would not be, wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. There's a lot of places that wouldn't be out of the possibility, but I think that we're thinking too small when we just try to lump all of these kids into Arabia.
Yeah.
Were some of them there? Sure. But I don't think all of them.
Am I wrong in this? And this, again, people in other countries, man, they're going to think I'm so silly for even asking this if this is wrong, so I'm so scared. But there is a large portion of Arabia that is just straight up uninhabitable, right? It's a massive desert, and it's just not a good place to be.
From what I understand, most of it.
Yeah. So that's that being said, this is a lot of kids, and if Joktan really had 33 or 30 some odd children, which the Bible does not say that, but he does have quite a bit listed here in the Bible. If all of them stay in Arabia, man, it's like, to do what? Not to be rude or to be silly. I mean, I see Ophir, wherever Ophir is, I would want to stay there too because there's gold there. But to do
Well, it
what?
depends on where you think Ophir is.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it won't be long to where I'm just gonna hush and let you talk, and I'm gonna be very interested to see where you take a lot of this stuff, man.
You're good, bro. You're good. I'm not an expert on this, man. I'm going off of what I just feel in my spirit. I don't feel like that all of these guys were in Arabia. I just don't.
Yeah. No. The more you speak about it, the more I'm convinced.
Well, it's like I said, it's just me. There's scholars for thousands of years who have thought differently. I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
I just think that it was the easiest thing to do. Well, we do have evidence for some of these sons of Joktan, so we're just going to throw them all here. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they were all in Arabia. I just don't. And like I said, it's just a me thing. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to listen to me on this. I don't have evidence of this, but just me personally, I don't believe they were all in Arabia. I don't believe that they were just all down there and the Bible took the time to list out all these sons of Joktan to just cover the Arabian Peninsula. Because if you go back, there's lineages that aren't all listed out. They take the time to list all of Joktan's sons, at least a good portion of them, and you're just going to list them all for the Arabian Peninsula. I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, I'm with you on that, man. I think
it seems to be too much. It seems to be highlighting these sons of Joktan too much.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they spread out a lot more than what the common scholarship thinks on this.
I will say it just like this: the one, maybe not red flag, but yellow flag that stuck up. Japheth took some work. Ham took a lot of work. Ham took a little less, but it was still days worth of work to try to find some of these connections, and you could find them, and that's what took time. Japheth was, dude, there was no finding some of those connections at all. No. Shem, on the other hand, bro, it was like within 30 minutes I had read everything there was to read on this. Anything else I went to find from other sources was just copy and paste from everything, and that was like a yellow flag to me, man. That just didn't seem right. It was just, it's a way different vibe when you're researching this compared to the other two houses of Noah. So I will put that in your favor for what you're saying, that it's just.
Well, when the Bible stops to go through an entire genealogy and it didn't in other places and it tracks it further down and further down, I think it's for a reason. Things are there for a reason. Like we talked about Asher earlier with Nimrod. Why would Asher, somebody from the line of Shem, just be thrown into the line of Ham all of a sudden? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Most likely he was going out and building these cities on behalf of Nimrod. Well, that's why he's there. He's highlighted there for a reason. I believe all these sons of Joktan are highlighted for a reason. And I don't believe it's because they were all in the same area.
No, you present a very, very good point, man. When we finish this, at least these next couple of names here, I'm really excited to see you present your side of just a different side of thinking here, because
and I'm not sold on that either, man. Like I said, we're going back thousands and thousands of years, but it's important to look at all sides of it. And I just don't think that they were all in Arabia.
Yeah,
could be wrong, but that's what I think.
I'm with you. Our next one here is Dikla. It means palm grove. Son of Joktan. If I had to guess, Palm Grove. That sounds like the best territory you could get down there. An Arabian territory or people? Question mark. This is of a region of Joktanite Arabia, probably abounding in palm trees. Of such places there are many in Arabia. Um, and yeah, I've read quite a few things that said basically the exact same thing. Um, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here, man, is that this is fun and it's exciting, and don't get me wrong, I really enjoy doing this section. It just doesn't have some of the mystery that the other two versions of or I guess really three now. We've done three for Genesis 10, with the exception of Nimrod making it four. This fifth installment is just not, the sense of wonder wasn't here for this. And that's why when Austin says he thinks that this isn't right, that these weren't all in Arabia, it's like my eyes start to glitter a little bit. Like, yes, say that there's more, man, because this is just,
Well,
here we are.
it could be as simple as they were all just in Arabia. It could be,
Sure.
but I'm skeptical on it because you have like an Arabian tribe question mark. Well, it's the son of Joktan. Just throw him in Arabia. You know what I mean? So it's it's just basically copy and paste. I mean, we can go through and look at these and everything else, but everything you're going to get in this is just going to say, oh, it's a founder of an Arabian tribe. Oh, by the way, this guy was in Arabia too.
Yes.
And like I said, it could be just that simple. It could be, but it just something about it is never set right to me.
I agree. Obel means stripped bare. Come down in the lexicon. A nation and country of Joktanite Arabs called in the Samaritan copy. The situation is wholly uncertain. Bocart understands them to be the Avilites on the shores of Ethiopia, but it seems that the Joktanites should be sought for in Arabia. Far less can this word be identified with the Gobelites in Idumea. So Bocart puts them on the shores of Ethiopia, so there's
Cross
at least
the
a little bit of water in between the Arabian Peninsula and Africa. So Abimael, or Abimael, my father is El, God, son of Joktan, descendant of Shem. The father of male, apparently some Arab tribe, written in parentheses. Coming on down here to your lexicon.
Well, it apparently has to be in Arabia because Joktan and all of them are all in Arabia.
Yeah, you've got the pattern here, man. Probably the father or founder of an Arab tribe, and it says probably, a trace of which was pointed out by Bocart and Theophrastus, who probably by the name of such and such means the same wandering tribe in the neighborhood of the modern Mecca, as in Strabo, or called the Minsi. So it's, anytime there's a question here, man, even when someone else says they may be in Ethiopia, they're like, it's probably better to throw them in Arabia. So it's just kind of strange here. So Sheba means seven or an oath, a nation in southern Arabia. The name of three early progenitors or tribes of an Ethiopian district. Sheba are the Sabians. That's from a different house, not to be confused with, as I did the other day when we were going through, which one was it? It was Psalm 72. Excuse me, I said 76. I was wrong. Psalm 72 was what I was referring to. Sabians, a nation or region of Arabia Felix, rich in frankincense, spices, gold, and gems. If we read the full entry, this is going to get a little tricky here because this might not be of just one household. So carry on depredations in the neighborhood of Alcestis. The genealogies in Genesis mention three men of this name: the grandson of Cush, the son of Rama, and the son of Joktan.
That's what I was talking about. There's two, sometimes three.
Yes. And then we had later on, near Abraham's time, it was the grandson of Keturah. So there's, you have it's crazy. Sheba is coupled with Data and his brother, and this I would thus account for by supposing that there were two Arabian tribes of this name. The one descended from Joktan in southern Arabia, and the other dwelling in the northern desert of Arabia near the Persian Gulf on the mouth of the Euphrates. You'll have to forgive me, guys. I know I'm reading a little bit on a faster pace, But it's just, you guys are spending your afternoon with us, or your morning, your evening, whatever. And Austin and I are just so honored by that. The amount of growth that we've had on this channel just within the past 5 days is just stunning to us, man. It's just amazing. And so to do something like this is, I don't want it to just be repetitive. I don't want you to think that Austin and I are making light of the situation, but something is just odd. It's just you have 100 people from the same families all living in the same peninsula, which is a massive landmass. Don't get me twisted. It's not like it's the size of Hawaii or whatever, but Mesha means freedom, okay? And we're down here of a place mentioned in the description of the boundaries of the Joktanite Arabia, and their dwelling was from Mesha unto Sephara. Now that was in the Bible. We saw that. Their dwelling was from Mesha. And so I'll give them that. That is very much true. In these words, Mesha seems to be Mova or Movia, a city of note with a port situated on the western shore of Arabia, nearly where is now Maushid, forming therefore the western boundary of the Joktanites. I understand Sephara to be the city, the metropolis of the region of Sher, between the provinces of Hadramaut and Oman. The mountains of Arabia are no doubt the chain of mountains nearly in the middle of Arabia, running from near Mecca and Medina to the Persian Gulf, the abode of the Wahhabites. See Jamard.
Well, if you go back up in what he was saying there,
sorry,
it uses these. There's important words here. Keep going down. Back to the lexicon you were looking at, the Chaldee lexicon.
Right here.
Yeah. Keep going up so we can see the top. Let's see. It says, in these words, Mesha seems to be, and then you go down, it's like, it's probably, I understand Sephara to be the city. Like, I don't know, man. Like I said, I could be way off, and it could just be they're all in Arabia. You know what I mean? But
sure.
Amount of the east. Now we looked at this. We looked at a topographical map of Arabia, and the highest peak, it seems to be on the west.
Yeah,
it seems to be on the west.
Yes.
Now there is, I believe it's like a 23, like the elevation going towards the east, where they were talking about, it seems to be about 2,300 feet, but the largest one is in the west.
Yes, and that stood somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, 6,000 feet, something like that, or 6,000, whatever.
6,300 feet, I believe it was.
63, I think, is the correct number. Yeah, but that was on the wrong side. That was on the west side. The side closer to Africa.
Right.
So that was strange. So. This is just Sephara here. So we're talking about where their land was now, just so we're where we are here. Sephara numbering a place in southern Arabia, a town of Arabia, Genesis 10:30. That's all you get for your Chaldee lexicon here. So here's what we're going to do, guys. I just want to read this one more time so that everybody can see what we've done. Oh, sorry, I went up a little far. So unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born, the children of Shem, Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Ludd, and Aram. The children of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arphaxad begat Shelah, and Shelah begat Eber. Eber had 2 sons, Peleg and Joktan. Joktan had 100 kids, Almadad, Shelah, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Dikla, Obo, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah. These 2 places here, we didn't see anything in the lexicon that mentioned gold, and that was what was crazy. These 2 places are in the Bible so often talked about with their gold and the building of Solomon's temple and all that.
Yeah, what is it in Exodus? It talks about Ophir, where the gold is good. And
yeah,
good this day. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was weird that we didn't see anything like that in the lexicon or anything. It's just strange, but that's certainly there, guys. That's all over the Bible. That the gold and Ophir, fantastic. I think Austin pointed out just the other day, it was in Genesis chapter 1 or maybe 2, it was 2, where we're talking about the Garden of Eden. This is spoken about with the gold is good, where all the rivers meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so some of that's we've already been over, and All these were the sons of Joktan. Now their dwellings were Mesha, and goest unto Sephar, a mountain of the east. And these are the sons of Shem after their families, after their tongues and their lands, and after their nations. I wanted to ask you something here, and I wanted to wait to ask you this question until the very end of our Genesis 10 area. When you see this here, after their families, after their tongues and their lands and their nations, is it appropriate, in your opinion, to say that Shem, Ham, and Japheth, when they split, at some point in time had different languages, and then when the Tower of Babel came together, they all made one language after that?
It's I've always wondered the same thing. I've always wondered the same thing. If they all came together under one common language, like we talked about the last video, how English kind of is today, and how in the ancient world Greek was kind of the common tongue. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, but I was just curious to see what you thought about that.
Well, I've always wondered that myself, because growing up, I always assumed that everyone spoke the same language until the Tower of Babel.
I did too, yeah.
But in Genesis here, it says after their tongues and their lands and after their nations.
Yes, and for anyone, yeah, and for anyone who is not sure exactly where we're getting some of this from, here it is right here for the sons of Ham, after the families, after their tongues and their countries and then their nations. And the same verbiage is used for Japheth as well. So that's why I asked that question, is all, for anyone who may not be aware of that. But again, to conclude chapter 10, these are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations and their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So we're about to take a little twisty turn here. If you've made it this far, you are a legend. That was a lot of Arabian talk, a lot of Arabian Peninsula talk. But before we move on, is there anything else you wanted to say, Austin?
Well, I will say this, is that I know I kind of poo-pooed on a little bit, but the truth is I don't know. I just don't know. Now, it just depends on exactly what Mesha is and where the Mount of Sephar, the amount of the east is. It really just depends exactly where that is. And I know scholars and theologians will say, oh, no, that's definitely in Saudi Arabia, and it very well may be. It's just the language there, the Mount of the East. Well, the mount, you would think that it would be the highest mount or some kind of mount that it would be talking about there. But the highest one is in the west, in the southwest of Arabia. It seems to be the highest elevation there. What we're about to get into now is the other viewpoint. I know we've teased this a little bit, and we usually have more clips than this, but most of the clips that we can find is just going to be quoting the scripture here and quoting it in the line of Shem. You have a lot of mystery when it comes to Japheth, some craziness when it comes to Ham between Canaan and Nimrod. There's a lot there you can get into, but in Shem, it's very vanilla. All the sons of Joktan are in Arabia, and you have Aram, and you have Elam, and those are pretty cut and dry. Now, I've teased it the whole time. There's another school of thought. Ross, let's go ahead and pull that clip up, and we're going to go back and forth between this clip and between Jubilees. Now, we've shown a couple of things from this channel, the God Culture. He's a contrarian, to say the least, when it comes to this type of stuff. Now, you see here highlighted what he proposes is the borders of Shem here. And you see it going from, yes, down in Arabia, but you also see it going north into Russia, and you see it going all the way over to China, the South Pacific. And this is where he says that these borders are according to how the land was divided within Jubilees. So let's play this a little bit and just see what he has to say. And we'll stop it a couple times to give some commentary on it, but just to give you a good idea. And I'll give him another plug. It's the God Culture. I invite you to go look up the Solomon's Gold series and to look up, this is from Answers and Jubilees. So between the Solomon's Gold series and the Answers and Jubilees, it talks about the sons of Joktan a lot. Ophir, Havilah, all that. So if you want a different kind of information on this, he's by far the best resource. And I won't steal his thunder or anything like that. There's a lot of cool stuff he gets into, and check it against the Bible. See what you think. Let's go ahead and get into this video, Bronson.
Let's do it, man. You just holler when you want to comment on it, okay?
Sure.
Quick sound check.
Though,
Good.
this will set the foundation. So let's begin. Chapter 8, Noah's division of the earth. Go back to verse 8, and you will find, confirming Genesis 10, Noah divided the whole earth before Babel in the days of Peleg, the ancestor of Abraham and brother of Joktan, from where his son Ophir, Havilah actually, went to the land of gold in the far east. That's where that derives. So let's start in verse 10. And it came to pass in the beginning of the 33rd.
All right, so his take on the earth was divided was that it was by Noah. One of the three common views on this was it was before Noah where the earth was divided. Now you heard him say that Sheba, Ophir, and Havilah went to the far east. Okay, so that is his theory on this. And like I said, they may have all been in Arabia, or they may have spread out further. I've always felt like they spread out further, me personally, but it really depends on where that mount is that they were talking about. So go ahead and let it play out a little bit, but I just wanted to point that out there. That's what he's saying is his viewpoint was before Babel when Noah divided the earth.
Jubilee, that they divided the earth into 3 parts. Notice the earth, all of it, for Shem and Ham and Japheth, according to the inheritance of each. In the first year, in the first week, when one of us who had been sent, one of the angels, was with them. So we even have a witness here. When he recorded it on the heavenly tablets, it was really the record of the angel eyewitness account. That's what this is. This isn't speculation. This is fact, the only fact. It supersedes all of archaeology and anybody with tons of initials after their name. They weren't there. The writer of this was. Now, and he called his sons, and they drew nigh to him, Noah, they and their children, and he divided the earth into lots, which his 3 sons were to take in possession. And they reached forth their hands and took the writing out of the bosom of Noah, their father. Before we read, just a little context.
I wanted to take a second here, Austin, because he's really talking highly about the Book of Jubilees here. Can we just take a second to say that this book has been loved and adored for a very, very, very long time. For Christians, man, when it comes to books like this, there is a tendency to stray away from anything that has a telling of the story of Genesis and Noah that has any slight difference than the book of Genesis.
I understand the feeling on that. I understand how, and I know a lot of people get that way with Enoch and stuff, people within our own family. And I totally get it. You have a lot of garbage texts out there, like the Gospel of Thomas, complete trash. I mean, you have a lot of Gnostic texts out there, and you can go back and look at this in history. I won't, take the time to pull it up right now. You can go back and look at it. The Gnostic schools. Each one of them was founded by a Kabbalist, okay, a mystical rabbi, basically, and they distort the story of Jesus because they hated Jesus, completely hated Jesus. So you got to be careful with a lot of the text you get into. There is a lot of trash out there. There's a lot of things that are just completely wrong, and wrong on purpose, wrong in the most spiritual terms, wrong. The Bible talks about doctrines of devils. There's a lot of those flying around today, and they're pulling a lot of the things that they're saying from these Gnostic texts.
Yes,
which are complete inversions of God's word. and they may take little truthful things. We've talked about this in our real earlier videos, how rat poison has 95% of it is good and nutritious for the rat, but it's just that 5% that kills it. Some of these Gnostic texts, it's the other way around. You have 5% truth and 95% like it's rough. And Jesus talked about warning against the leaven of the Pharisees. Okay, and if you know about leaven, you don't need. If you've ever made bread, you don't need a whole lot of leaven to make that lump rise. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. You know what I mean? So a little bit of that poison, just like rat poison, that 5% can get in and kill you. So I understand where it's coming from with these texts. However, Jubilees, a lot of people consider it to be Torah, to consider it to be written by Moses as another book that should be like Genesis, Deuteronomy, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and should be Jubilees as well. Some people consider that. I don't go that far, but I do like the text. I don't see a whole lot in Jubilees that goes against the Bible. Just like in Enoch, I don't see a whole lot that goes against the Bible. But I will say this: we read in this one thing. We read in the concordance when we were looking at the definitions about the Hebrews follow the lunar calendar. In Jubilees, it would appear that it goes on a solar calendar. So that's a difference right there. Now, what we're about to get into in this video, just to push it forward a little bit, because there's a lot I could say on the Gnostic text and bad text and everything else, but I don't believe Jubilees is one of those texts. I don't believe this is a text you have to fear. Now, you don't have to take it as gospel, scriptural truth if you don't want to. You don't have to base your belief system off it, but I haven't found anything harmful within Jubilees. If I did, or if I come across anything, I will correct myself here. But I don't see anything harmful in Jubilees that goes against the Bible whatsoever. You can make an argument for that calendar thing, whether you believe it should be a lunar or a solar calendar. I hear you. But other than that, and I don't believe that's harmful either. Other than that, I don't see anything harmful in Jubilees. Now, what he's about to get into here is he's going to, we're biblical cosmologists, and you don't have to be saved. You don't have to be at all. But I believe that's what the Bible says. But you cannot argue that every ancient culture all had this cosmology that he's about to talk about here. So if you get triggered about that, I'm sorry. That's just how the ancient world viewed things. That's how the writers of the Bible viewed things. That's how every religion in the ancient world viewed things. We'll do a cosmology episode coming up real soon, and some of you guys might not like it, but I'm just going to go straight from scripture, and we're going to go straight from ancient sources. So let's get into what he's talking about here, and he's going to take you through these directions they give you within Jubilees. And I invite you to follow along in Jubilees 8. We have it here, and we'll go back and forth with it some, but everything he just said was reading directly from Jubilees chapter 8, and he showed it down there in the bottom. So please follow along.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thank you very much for clearing that up, man. To our audience members, if you would be interested in Austin and I going through some of the texts that we think are trash, we'd be happy to one day. Very happy to.
God, I don't even want to. Some of those, like the Gospel of Thomas especially, just dirty reading. Just dirty. And at the end of it, it says something about, if you're a woman, you can't be saved. That is completely wrong.
Oh, it's trash.
It's completely wrong. Now, there is a hierarchy within God's kingdom of how it's supposed to be, and I know a lot of feminists don't like that hierarchy. But to go as far as the Gospel of Thomas does, you can't be saved unless that is complete trash. It is absolute trash. I would prefer, if we did do those, if we would just leave the Gospel of Thomas out. I don't think it's edifying in any way.
I wasn't going to read any of them, not even read it to him, just tell him where it was, because a lot of the stuff you hear today, Jesus married Mary Magdalene, when he washed their feet, we're talking a lot more than just feet. Some of that stuff comes from, like the Gospel of Judas. It says that Jesus commanded Judas to betray him, and there's some really weird, twisted stuff out there. But Jubilees isn't like that. Jasher is not much like that. Jasher's got some crazy stuff.
If you read, and a lot of people like God culture here does not like Jasher. He thinks that it is a Pharisee garbage text that came, that was basically to counteract Jubilees.
Mm.
He feels that way about Josephus too. He's a Pharisee. Everything he says is garbage, basically. So there, people have their own beliefs. I'm just trying to present the two competing ideas on this, and I believe the God culture is at the forefront of trying to track down these sons of Joktan and placing them in a different place. So just to add a little bit of spice to this kind of vanilla episode, I want to at least show this viewpoint because I think it has a lot of validity to it. And when you go into Jubilees and you read this for yourself, it makes a lot of sense the way he's breaking this down. Let's go ahead with this video.
Context. If you paid attention in science or history class, every textbook and all of history tells us the general ancient cosmology of the earth in belief was that of a flat, round disk. I'm not talking about some cult here or there. I'm talking about generally. And the writers of the Bible do, in fact, fit that as well. So basically, a flat, round disk with the North Pole essentially as the center point. Now, that's how they saw it. Not Israel ever, but the North Pole was the center, the navel, the middle of the earth, period. There's really nothing to discuss. Now, we don't care what modern perspective you use, but don't force your perspective on the ancients because they believe what they believe. They wrote what they believed, and it's very clear, very obvious, and this whole mapping actually makes that clear. Noah essentially wrote this, and Moses records it here, but he got it from the heavenly tablets, really essentially from Noah originally. So it is his writing and his perspective we must use, and written down on the heavenly tablets by an angel who witnessed Noah's division. That's how this all works. So it makes perfect sense. Now, there is not a single scripture which ever places Israel in which this chapter 8 describes as not Israel specifically, and nowhere near Israel as what Jubilees calls, and we're about to begin, the middle of the earth. The center of the navel of the earth comes later, referring to the same place, to which it recaps, and also returns in the end, as Noah was just that brilliant. So really 3 times in this passage, he's really confirming this is fact. Let's read. And there came forth on the writing as Shem's lot the middle of the earth, which he should take as an inheritance for himself and for his sons, for the generations of eternity. Did you read that? That's forever. Modern nations must comply to Noah's division, to Noah's law, essentially, if you want to call it that. Or they are cursed, according to Jubilees. From the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, from the mouth of the water, from the river Tina, and his portion goes towards the west through the midst of this river. These 2 names can be found in history, and you see them on screen. And it extendeth till it reaches the water of the abysses, seas, out of which this river goes forth and poureth its waters into the sea of Mi'at. And this river floweth into the great sea, ocean. And all that is towards the north is Japheth's, and all that is toward the south belongs to Shem. Now that's of that border. Wow. Noah specifically described what can only be one river system, really on all of Earth, which runs into the middle of one mountain range known as the Ural Mountains today, the Rephaim Mountains, which empties into the ocean, the North Sea, while running into 2 seas, in which one actually runs into another sea or abyss. So these are, I mean, you just cannot misunderstand these directions. R.H. Charles got this. These names are not lost, and this is the continental divide between Europe and Asia, or Japheth and Shem, to this day. Now, it continues south as it just defined the north. Started in the very north at the North Pole, and then came down to essentially Russia, which divides the two continents to this day by the very same geographic markers that Noah used. And it extendeth till it reacheth Carasso. This is in the bosom of the tongue, which looks towards the south. Now that's India, which just so happens to have a bosom on its tongue even. And Carasso is a well-known, very ancient city, Kirasara, in India, in the Indus Valley civilization, which was functioning in the days of Noah. Imagine that. And his portion extendeth along the Great Sea. That's the Indian Ocean, or in ancient times, Erythraean Sea. And it extendeth in a straight line till it reacheth the west of the tongue, which looks towards the south. For this sea is named the tongue of the Egyptian Sea, the Red Sea. Essentially, this goes to the west of Saudi Arabia, to the Red Sea, which is west of Saudi Arabia. See, waters are included in this division, which is amazing. But that splits and surrounds the Sinai Peninsula, but the Sinai Peninsula is not in this territory. That is in Ham's, has always belonged to Egypt.
So far, he's taken it from the North Pole down south through the North Sea and basically made a divide there between Europe and Asia, coming all the way down to India, then back over to Saudi Arabia. Okay? So if everybody's following along here, he's following the directions in Jubilees. So let's go ahead and let him, well, do you have any thoughts on this before we continue?
No, but I would. One thing I must say is he's doing a stellar job. I've got to be honest with you. We did this together once, going through Jubilee, you and I, and this wasn't the easiest thing to do. And as I'm watching him, I'm like, yeah, no, he's on point with all this, bro. This is pretty good.
The key is to understanding the navel of the earth. The center of the earth is not Israel. Now, where people get confused in this is like in later on is when they're given directions in the east or in the north or anything like that. When they're given directions from where they are at, which a lot of times is in Jerusalem. So that would be the center point in their locations to where they're given east, west, wherever it may be. So yes, it would be the center point there, but the navel of the earth is not Israel. And regardless of how I feel about the rest of this, I could 100% agree with that. It is not Israel. The center of the earth is the center of the earth, and within the Hebrew mind, whether you believe in the heliocentric model or the biblical model, and I don't say that as a knock against you. It's just, I get it. I was raised in the same schools and had the same belief systems, but when you dive into the Bible, you just can't keep those. When you really dive in, I just don't feel like you can keep those same beliefs. And I'm a Bible believer. That's where my firm foundation is. Neither here or there. But when you start at the North Pole, you start getting these directions, and it's like, oh God, okay. They really were dividing up the whole earth. And we're going to jump over to Jubilees just to show the text in case you're not following along or you don't have the resources to follow along. That's cool. We're going to go and we'll show some of that text here in just a moment. But do you have anything to add before we go back to the video, sir?
No, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and let it ride out and look at the rest of these directions. This is fascinating to me. I love this.
Me too.
Egypt and Africa. And Noah decided that. Yes, there is history where it may have flipped hands, but doesn't matter. Noah divided it, and it belongs with Egypt. And it turneth from here towards the south, towards the mouth of the great sea, the Indian Ocean again, on the shore of its waters, the African shore coming. And it extendeth to the west to Afra. That is Jubilee's name for Africa, the eastern side. You're going to see it again in Ham's territory as Afarag, which is referring to the western side of Africa. Together, they are Africa. The name is very ancient. And it extendeth till it reacheth the waters of the river Gihon. Where's that? That's the ancient river from Eden. Wow. And to the south of the waters of Gihon, to the banks of this river, the Gihon River. The banks of the Gihon River are the African continental shelf, as this river from Eden is on the bottom of the ocean floor, right where Scripture says it should be, especially Job, but also Second Esdras, also it's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and even scientists we quote. Now, you'll have to watch our Rivers from Eden series in order to get full detail on that. We are not going to debate that in comments, so don't even try. You'll just be muted and deleted. Shem does not enter Africa. Now, watch what this does. This is incredible. And it extendeth towards the east. Where? Well, it's east of Africa, right? About to see the Garden of Eden? Not in Africa. Sorry. We also already passed Mesopotamia in the directions, so we're not there either. Till it reaches the Garden of Eden, because that's Shem's eastern border, which you'll see will become very evident throughout the directions, even in Shem's, but especially in Ham's, where he defines that very thoroughly. And then to the south thereof, to the south. In other words, the Garden of Eden is just north of Shem's southeastern border. Right on the tip there, it's somewhere just north of that area. Now, this will become more defined in the territory of Ham in the next video. So we're not going to deal with that here, and that's why we just leave the territory very vague for now, but it does not stay vague, don't worry. Now, we'll see Noah making it clear that this territory goes east of India even, coming in the next frames. And from the east of the whole land of Eden, and of the whole east, or Orient in the Bible, that's the same word, same thing, this is the far east. Now, this is a generality of the entire east of the earth. Now, this has always been the Orient. Now, we're not talking about what they call the Orient from Rome. That's, I mean, you know, the Middle East is the Orient from Rome. It's east of Rome. Orient just means east. But the writers of the Bible didn't live in Rome. They lived in Israel. And when they're talking about east, they're talking about east and really far east of Israel. This is the east of Eden in which the garden was planted. How do we know that? Jubilees just told you that's where the Garden of Eden is. So it's right there. So clearly this is affirming Genesis. Eden, however, is the North Pole, not the Garden of Eden. They are two distinctly different places. And the East, in all of time, has always been the Orient, specifically. This is returning full cycle to the beginning of Shem, as it must, in the North Pole, and then it reaffirms the Russian border. So really it takes, you know, number 1 and number 2 in the directions and repeats them to make it clear that this is the end of the cycle. It turneth to the east. Now, R.H. Charles and others note that that is a corruption, and they believe that it actually should read west instead of east. and it would have to. It wouldn't make any sense otherwise. And they already define where Rapha and Tina are. So we already know where they are, and we already know that they're west. We already know that they're not east in the direction, so it doesn't work. But that happens with ancient texts, and corruptions like that exist even in biblical texts way back, and you rectify them. You find a way to reconcile. You use other passages. You keep it in context. In this case, the context is the whole directions, which already told us where Rapha and Tina are. So we already know where this is. And proceedeth till it reaches the east of the mountain named Rapha. We already covered that, the Ural Mountains in Russia. And it descendeth to the bank of the mouth of the river Tina, Tana in Scythian, referring to the Don and Volga river system. That is the border, basically in Russia, between Europe and Asia to this day. Noah set that border. This portion came forth by lot for Shem and his sons, that they should possess it forever unto his generations, forevermore. Could he be clearer? That means it never ends, right? This is still valid today. Verse 18. And Noah rejoiced that this portion came forth for Shem. Why? Well, Shem was the oldest, and he was his favorite because he was the righteous of the three sons, at least more righteous than the others. And for his sons, and he remembered all that he had spoken with his mouth in prophecy, for he had said, Blessed be Yahuwah Elohim of Shem, and may Yahuwah dwell in the dwelling of Shem. Well, he meant that literally, because, check this out, and he knew that the Garden of Eden is the Holy of Holies and the dwelling of Yahuwah. Whoa, wow. And this is pinpointing, by the way, you see it a little bit here, but you're going to see it much more in the directions of Ham, where this becomes very specific. This is the Philippines, as you will see strictly defined in the next video. And Mount Sinai, the center of the desert, and Mount Zion. Where's Mount Zion? It is not in Israel. There is a Mount Zion in Israel. That is not this one, because this one is the center of the navel of the earth, which is not Israel. It is the North Pole.
All right, let's stop it there.
Again, the middle or navel of the earth.
Wow.
Okay, so on this map, he's got it all colored in now to where, at least in his theory, that Shem's borders are using Jubilees. Now, I know you might have said, the Philippines? The Garden of Eden's in the Philippines? What the Philippines have to do with anything? That was my first reaction too. I'm not claiming that it is in the Philippines, but I will say that he has done a very good job laying that out in the Solomon's Gold series. I have not watched all of it. I think it has like 100 different chapters to it, maybe more. I think I've maybe watched the first 30. So I don't have the full encompassing teaching of this. I think I did 30 episodes and I had to get onto something else or do something else or something like that. This is years ago I watched it, so I'm not an expert on what he says. I'm not going to try and debunk him. I'm not going to put the stamp of approval on it either. I will say it's a very fascinating subject, and he did a lot of research. So I invite you guys to go check out that Solomon's Gold series and to check out this Answers and Jubilees also. Now, another thing that you may have just like jumped out at you was Mount Zion being in the North Pole. And guys, I tend to believe that. A lot of people will kill me for that in the comments, I know, but I tend to believe that. And it talks about it in the Bible itself, Mount Zion to the north. And I've heard scholars and certain people try and be like, oh, well, it's just comparing Mount Zion in Israel to Mount Zaphon in the north, which was Bel's holy mountain, and all this type of stuff. But that's not what it's saying. It's saying Mount Zion in the north. Now, let's look at this Mercator map. And a lot of people believe this Mercator map was drawn off of the description in Enoch. And this is supposed to be the North Pole here.
It's got to be one of these. There we go. Sorry.
If you look on Google Maps, you will not see anything that looks like this. But according to Enoch, and this is how Mercator drew it out, I believe it was in the 1500s. Let's zoom in a little bit further. Right there in that center. That is a giant mountain. Now, if you look into the Garden of Eden, and I invite you all to do a deep study on this, it talks about Eden being a mountain, right?
Right.
Well, this mountain right here, I believe, is Mount Zion. I could be really, really wrong, but this is what I believe. I believe the Mount Zion is this mountain right here. And I believe like the Mount Meru, mythos and all that, I believe that's pointing back to this mountain here. I also believe that when it talks about, how Lucifer tried to ascend on the sides of the north to put himself above the angels of God and on the mountain of the congregation, I believe this is the mountain that he tried to ascend and got smacked down. I believe this is it right here. Like I said, I know this is far out stuff and conspiratorial, but to me it makes sense. Especially when we look at Jubilees. Now let's go to Jubilees and let's show what he was talking about so we can show it in the text. So it's not just, Austin or Bronson talking about this and, the God culture saying this, and he's saying a lot of things that's way out of the conventional thought. Okay. And I completely understand it. The first time I heard the Garden of Eden, the Philippines, I was just like, man, I'm done with this. I've heard it all now. It's in the Philippines. Are you sure it's not in Zimbabwe? How about Canada? Let's just throw out random places, bro. What are you talking about?
Arabian Peninsula.
But as you go through Jubilees and the God culture, I believe his name's Timothy, is the guy you hear talking about. I think it's a group of folks. He believes that Jubilees is Torah. And there's quite a few people that believe that. So this is, to him, this is the ultimate scripture, okay? To be held on the same level as Genesis. That's not what I'm saying. That's what they believe, okay? So let's look a little bit at what it's talking about here. And Bronson, you don't have to read the whole thing, but let's skim through a little bit just to show, hey, he wasn't pulling his ideas from nowhere, okay?
Yeah. No, he did a good job on that.
Right. So this is, like I said, the line of Shem is a little bit vanilla if you're just using academics and theologians and, just everything's in Arabia for Joktan. Everything's, it's very vanilla. So, to add a little spice to it, let's at least look into this. And I do mean that what I said about Mount Zion. I do believe it's in the north, what we call the North Pole, what Scripture calls the navel of the earth. I do believe that, me personally. I could be very wrong, and if I am, God forgive me, but that's what I believe. So, Bronson, if you want to skim through this a little bit and read through it some, let's just show the people that that guy wasn't pulling this out of nowhere. And honestly, I'm not pulling my belief about Mount Zion out of nowhere either. This is where it comes from, and there's a lot of other things that go into it. But Bronson, if you want to just skim through this and read some.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, man. So we're going to start here in verse 12. And again, this is coming from the Book of Jubilees now. And there came forth on the writing as Shem's lot, the middle of the earth, that he should take an inheritance for himself and his sons for the generations of eternity. From the middle of the mountain range of Rapha, that should sound familiar by now, and from the mouth of the water from the river Tina. And I think the guide culture did a stellar job. It was not too long ago that I was trying to find where this mountain range Rafa was and where this river Tina was, and I think he did a really good job on that. I had tried to do what he was doing. I didn't realize I was trying to, and when I saw his little map just now, that was my first time ever seeing some of that stuff pop up, and I was like, well, geez. And his portion goeth toward the west through the midst of this river, and it extended till it reacheth the waters of the abysses, out of which this river goeth forth, and poureth its waters into the sea Miat. And this river floweth into the great sea. And if I'm not mistaken, when he said the great sea, he was putting that down towards the Indian Ocean. And all that is towards the north is Japheth's, and all that is towards the south belongeth to Shem. And it extends till it reaches Careso, and that was down towards India, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the bosom of the tongue which looked towards the south. And he showed that on that map. There's that little extra piece of land off of that little tip, that horn down there. This portion extends to the Great Sea, and it extends in a straight line till it reacheth the west of the tongue which looketh towards the south. For this sea is named the tongue of the Egyptian sea.
All right, Bronson. Yeah, you don't have to read it all, man.
Sure.
Because he basically just read all that same thing to him. I just want everybody to see that this is not something he's just pulling out of nowhere. He's taking it straight out of Jubilees. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look here, let's see. It says it extends towards the east till it reaches the Garden of Eden. Okay, and south from the east of the whole land of Eden. So that's exactly what he was saying. Whether you place it at the same place on the map or not, it is talking about the Garden of Eden here. Okay, then you get down here to 19 there. It says, and he knew that the Garden of Eden is the holy of holies and the dwelling of the Lord, and Mount Sinai the center of the desert, and Mount Zion the center of the navel of the earth. Okay, so let's pull up that Mercator map one more time. It says the center of the navel of the earth. What does that look like?
Center of the navel of the earth is what it looks like it to me.
Right. I mean, that's just, like I said, guys, I could be wrong, and don't take what I'm saying as 100% truth. Pray on it, ask the Holy Spirit about it. But from what I've got back and the way I feel in my spirit, I think this is right. And I fight against all the Christian teachings I've ever been taught and everything else with this. I'm telling you, with the biblical cosmology thing, I fought tooth and nail on that and looked, and I get the same feeling about this as I did about that. I fought this, and I didn't even want to say it tonight, but this is truly what I believe, is that this is exactly what it's talking about here. That this is, and this rendition may be a little off here, there, whatever, but I mean, zoom in on it a little bit. I mean, the center of the navel.
So there are lots of cultures out here that have similar beliefs. Most Americans, I would assume, are familiar with Mount Olympus. If you've ever seen the Hercules movie or whatever. We talk a lot in our Christian community, whether you're a church-going Christian or a stay-at-home Christian, a home church Christian. We all have been raised, for the most part, to know that the enemy takes the truth and perverts it, twists it, and distorts it. And we see these things in lots of cultures, that there is some special mountain that is the home of the gods, and they have this council and this meeting, and it seems to be accessible to certain humans, but incredibly hard to get to. That's fair so far?
Yeah, and let's just do a little plug, because we have a video coming out where we're going to be talking about all these mountains that are, maybe holy mountains in all these different religions, and we have several of them. I believe there's 5 of them in America that are holy to the natives. I know Mount Graham is one of them. You have Mount Zaphon, which was the mountain of Bel. You have Mount Hermon, which was the mountain of El, and the 70 sons of El, which is the same place in Enoch where it said the 200 watchers descended. So just a little plug there. We have, and if you guys have anything on mountains or anything cool or anything, please send it to us. Put it in the comments. Message us on X. Like we always say, if you message us on X, we will definitely get back to you. That's really how we communicate is through X. So if you have something, follow us on X and shoot us some info, because we're compiling all this stuff, and it may be next week or it may be 2 or 3 weeks from now, just depending on how much we find. But we're going to try and break down all these mountains and all the gods, that little g gods that claim dominion over these mountains and all that type of stuff. So I do want to point that out. And I also want to say that, I do realize there's a Mount Zion, just like he said in the video, there's a Mount Zion in Israel, but I believe it was called that after the true Mount Zion, which I believe is at the North Pole. So let's go back to Jubilees and read a little bit and see if we see anything else that could color some of this in.
Absolutely, man.
And guys, trust me, I realize how crazy some of this stuff sounds. I really do. Believe me, you probably are not reacting as irritated as I was when I first heard the Garden of Eden's in the Philippines. I said, man, I have heard it all now.
Yeah.
And at the time, if you would have heard somebody say Mount Zion's in the North Pole, I would have just completely shut down and shut off. Totally get it. And if you're mad at me about it, I totally get it. Was there. Totally get it. But with Jubilees and with a lot of other things I've seen, like I said, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm going with for right now. And I've changed over the years on lots of things, but this is something I've mulled over for quite a few years, and I believe that center of the navel of the earth is depicted pretty well in that Mercator map.
I think so too, man. Right here in verse, I'm just going to call this 19. These three, this is in reference to the Garden of Eden, which Jubilees is calling the Holy of Holies and the dwelling of the Lord, calls Mount Sinai in the desert and Mount Zion, the center of the navel of the earth. These were created as holy places facing each other. If you have made it this far into this video, I'm going to assume that you are no novice in this conversation. But I always think that it's fair, and I think Austin does too, that we try to speak to everyone who's here as if you are advanced and adept, or if you are, and you guys probably know by now, I'm a martial arts instructor. I've been for many, many years of my life. I call them the white belts of Christianity. You got white belts and black belts in the same class. And so, Austin, real quick, man, what is Mount Zion and why does it matter? What is that place?
It's the holy mountain of God.
What does that mean?
Well, let's look into it.
Let's do it.
No, let's not do that.
Okay.
We have a mountain video coming up, Bronson. Okay. You're not going to make me spoil everything from it.
Sorry, man. Be on the lookout for that, guys. Be on the lookout for that video.
You're not going to do it, man. But we will do a thorough examination of Mount Zion. I will examine my own beliefs while we're doing it. We will go through it. I will not do it with preconceived notions, and we will cover it exactly what it says. And Mount Zion will be a main focal point, but we will get into all these other mountains and mountains that's not even within the the Hebrew mindset. We'll get into some in America. We'll cover. We may even cover some pyramids in China. We'll cover some stuff because essentially pyramids are mountains. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and you could say they were power plants, and if you've seen our ether video, I don't technically disagree with you. It definitely could have been, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that in the mountains video.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to press you. It's just
No, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, man, we've gone kind of long here. I don't want to just, this is the Sons of Shem.
Yeah.
Mountains video. And then we kind of got sidetracked on the North Pole and all that type of stuff. But while I was there, I figured, hey, man, might as well add a little something to the video so we're not just in Saudi Arabia the whole time.
I'm glad you did, man, because it's a very, very exciting thing. But I can remember growing up in church and hearing songs about Mount Zion and this and that, and then till Zion come and Zion sing. And as a kid, just being like, what in the world is that? I've got no idea what they're talking about. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of put something here. If you don't know what Mount Zion is and you've made it this far into the video, dude, God bless your soul. You are You are an adventurer far beyond the boundaries of your own understanding and knowledge at this point. And so I really commend you and compliment you for doing such a thing, because there's a high probability that you may be lost at this point in the conversation. Whereas those of you that are adept are more than likely following along the conversation and might be like, what, North Pole? And then there's
What are these
definitely,
dudes talking about?
yeah.
I know. Trust me, I know. I get it. We'll get into it in the mountains video, but you can see it here. It says the center of the navel of the earth. And if you take, whether you believe like I do or not, if you look at it from the mindset of the writers of this text and the writers of the Bible, the center of the navel of the earth would be the North Pole. What we would consider the North Pole. And that's just a fact. Like the God culture said. Like I said, I don't totally agree with him on everything, and we can debate things back and forth, but he's 100% right there. And it's undebatable. It's not debatable. Within the mindset of the cosmology of the time, that is the center of the earth, the navel of the earth. And anybody that tells you Israel or anything like that, sorry, dude, it's not. I don't care if you have a doctorate, it's not.
Right.
Not at all. Not when you take into consideration the mindset of the people at the time. So
and Moses didn't write this. This is Noah who's the author of this book. This is a pre-flood individual. He would have known.
This would be Moses, according to the story.
Oh, excuse me. I'm wrong on that. Yeah, thank you. I thought this was a Noah writing.
Some people have speculated that, but for the most part, people put this as Moses.
Oh, okay. Got you. Very, very cool, man. This is Austin, this has been a fantastic video, dude. I know the beginning portion was very much Arabia, but you've turned this into something that I think is going to be leading us down a different road. And we're going to go down some of these, well, really up, I guess. We're going to go up these mountains and see what's going on.
Did you ever think that if you didn't like the movie Aladdin, you were anti-Semitic?
No, I didn't. But I was thinking about that earlier this morning in the shower. I was sitting there thinking, it's like, I guess Indians are Semitic too. And I mean, there's
well, yeah. And if you go by, Jubilees and what the God culture said, that's all. Can we go back to that video real quick to show where Shem is? And we'll close it out from there, man. And guys, I know that we kind of went to far out land on this one, just for a genealogy one. But I figured, hey, man, we might as well cover some interesting things, some thought-provoking things, and it may make you emotional or mad. And like I said, I know the first time I heard that, Garden of Eden in the Philippines, it honestly, I was just like, dude, I'm done. I'm done watching Bible YouTubers. I'm done with this. I'm just gonna read the Bible. And you know what I mean? And I revisited it later, like, all right, let me see what this crazy dude's talking about. Let me see what he's talking about. And I went and looked at it, and I looked at Jubilees, and I'm like, well, okay, I see what he's saying here. Well, I may not totally agree, but I see the research and I see where he's taking the directions from. So looking at this, yeah, I mean, you have Saudi, you have right there in the Levant, going up to Turkey, like we talked about, the southern part of Turkey, coming over. I mean, all of that would technically be within Shem's border using his reasoning.
Yeah, no, and that, I'm telling you, man, what he did with Jubilee there was rather impressive, because he made it look easy while he's reading it, and he's saying, well, all these things are so, modern cities, and they're still here. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess when I went to go look for it, yes, it can be done, but it wasn't like where is the river of Tina? You know what I mean? It's a little bit harder than that. And so knowing what I know about that, I have a lot of respect for the way that he was able to break it down. That took hours and hours of his life to be able to just make that one small little image with those, little dotted lines across things.
Yeah, a ton of research, man. A ton of research.
Yeah.
It may have seemed a little long to you guys, but I'm sure to him making the video, that was just really quick, and he probably spent years on it, man. Yeah. So shout out to the God culture. Really, appreciate this for just being able to spice up this video a little bit, and we can get off the screen share, brother, and just kind of talk to folks for a minute before we get off here.
Sure.
But yeah, guys, if you made it this far, thank you. And we saw all the 1, 2, 3s. shout out to you guys. Awesome, awesome stuff. Like I said, I know we kind of went to crazy town with Zion in the North Pole and him mentioning the Garden of Eden in the Philippines, but there's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of stories about that kind of stuff, and when you, like we've said several times, going to the line of Shem is kind of vanilla. Most of everything they're going to put right there in that Near East region, around the Levant, going towards Persia, and all of Joktan is apparently in the Arabian Peninsula. So it's you there, Bronson?
Can you see me? Am I moving on the screen?
I cannot see you.
Really?
I believe your camera's off. I just wanted to make sure I didn't lose you. I know we had some technical difficulties at the beginning of this.
No, it says that it's on. How strange is that? I don't know, man. No, I can see you and hear you just fine. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I'm here.
No, you're good. I just want to make sure we didn't lose each other. But yeah, guys, I really do appreciate the 1, 2, 3s. That was awesome. It helped us out with the analytics too, to kind of look into it and see what was going on. YouTube's funny sometimes.
Really?
We do upload, just in case you guys don't like YouTube, we do upload to that Mean Green channel, to where you can find all the stuff you can't find on YouTube. Coming up here, we'll probably do some exclusive videos over there and talk about some things that we can't talk about over here for obvious reasons. But yeah, just thank you so much, guys, for the support and coming and watching the videos and everything. And we're getting ready for it. And there you are. Hey.
Hey.
There's the guy. This guy. But yeah, thanks for coming out and supporting us, guys. We're getting ready to go on our Asheville trip we talked about a little bit last time, and going up to the mountains and digging into some of this stuff up there. Very, very excited to do the first few days of filming out there and trying to set up some interviews and talking to some locals about some of the crazy stories that go on out there. Some of these, really some of these things that we're going to look at out there are some ruins and some ancient rocks and some stories about giants and cryptids and all kinds of stuff we're going to be looking into. Super excited about that. So if you guys made it to the end of this video, we really, really appreciate it. And excuse me for going a little bit on the crazy train, but we'll cover a lot of what we talked about in that mountain video we have coming up, and maybe make a little more sense out of it and get into some of the legends around the world about this mountain that goes all the way from Earth all the way to heaven. You can find that in a lot of cultures. We've talked a little bit about the Mount Meru, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But for the line of Shem, thank you guys for sitting through it. Like I said, we know it gets a little mundane at the beginning, and hopefully you made it to the end, to a little more of the interesting, a little far out type of stuff, which is stuff we like to dig into. Bronson, you want to say anything before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah, I sure do, man. First and foremost, guys, thank you. Like Austin said, we do appreciate it. It just means the world to us. It's very humbling and impactful that you would hang out for 2.5 hours with little old us and chill out. 2, Austin, thank you, man. You did a really, really great job tonight. I really appreciate that. And number 3, if you are still here and you found what Austin was saying to be a little bit crazy, I respect that and I commend that.
Me too.
As a Christian, man, I was a little more hard-headed as a youngin', and I when I heard things that I disagreed with, I was very quick to cut people off. And as I get older and a little wiser and a little more patient, I've got a long way to go. I know the majority of our audience is double my age, and again, that's why I say I have so much thanks and appreciate, and I'm humbled that you guys would sit around and listen to a 27-year-old and his brother talk about some things. But as Christians, man, I think the number one most important thing in our life is Jesus Christ, and that we follow him and believe that he is the Messiah, the way, the truth, and the life, that he was born of a virgin, died, rose 3 days later, and ascended up into heaven to be at the right hand of the Father until his enemies are made his footstool. And as long as we agree on that right there, man, I think a lot of our differences are really minuscule. I really do. There was a time when I would disagree with that, but in this point in my life, I don't. And so, again, if you disagree with what Austin said about the North Pole, and you stuck around this far, man, I have a lot of respect for you and thank
Yeah.
you for that. Because in our lifetime, we've challenged our own beliefs and stepped out of our comfort zone. And I'll get a little shaky even talking about it. In a lot of ways, it's caused a lot of issues and arguments and problems just for us to question the narrative. And so, um, mad respect if you stuck around. I won't harp on that much longer, but mad respect. So, but to conclude the whole video, man, that is it on Genesis 10. We got through the begets, baby. We got through the grind. It's done. So we did it. And it was,
I was kind of dreading it going in, man. I knew there were some cool stuff, especially when you get into the Ham with Nimrod and all that. But really, really, really have enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And to wrap it up, the line of Shem, which is usually kind of cut and dry, but it is, especially if you want to look at just mainstream scholarship. It is. But to end it on a wild note like that, talking about the North Pole, it warms my heart. I like doing stuff like that. I like questioning the narrative, being a little bit of a contrarian, looking at things from a different viewpoint. And like I said, you don't have to agree with me. Hell, it's out there, and I understand that. But just with all the research I've done and look into a lot of the things I looked into with the little season and things like that, when it talks about in Revelation how the armies of the earth will be surrounding the camp of the saints and all that type of stuff, and then you see that Mercator map with that mountain in the middle of it, it's just like, how would they surround it from all sides? How would all the nations surround it? Well, good God, they're all surrounding it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's at the navel of the earth, there's a lot of things like that. And like I said, if you don't agree with me, that's cool. I know it's far out there. And if you just want to think Zion's the mountain in Israel, cool, man. It doesn't really matter all that much. But to me, I find it fascinating to dig into those deeper things and to look at the language of things and see and look at the legends and try to piece it all together. To me, that's where it gets really fun. The important thing is that, like Bronson said, that we agree on the Messiah, and we agree on things like that. It's very important and very serious. But the fun part is when you get to speculate and look at different things, look at things from a different angle, and to me, it just it makes it a lot more fun for me to really dig into it and look at things from a different viewpoint and try and look at things from the viewpoint of the ancients, because I love that old stuff. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if you don't agree, cool. That's fine. I may be wrong. I've I've been wrong about things before. I used to think that we were hurling through space with billions and billions and billions of stars and everything else, and now I just find that laughable. You may still be there and don't think that. I get it. It was there. I used to think that little hill in Israel was Mount Zion, and I don't anymore. I've gone to different places with that type of stuff, but as long as we keep that firm foundation and what the Scripture says, and believing in Christ as our Savior, then everything else is just digging deep and having fun with it. And that's just where I stand on it. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me, and I'm cool with that. Yeah. But guys, thanks for watching. And I really do love you guys on the other side of the screen. And I appreciate you being part of our community here. And I really was so happy to see all the 1, 2, 3s you guys made it to the end, because I know I rambled, Bronson rambles a little bit. Not like I do, but thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And this wraps up Genesis 10. We will be going into our next video will be on the Tower of Babel, which in itself was kind of like a mountain.
Yeah, sure was.
So it'll be right along the line of what we've ended with tonight, and we're going to dive back into the Nimrod stuff, the legends of the Tower of Babel, different texts that mention people going away, kind of changed a little bit. So there's all kinds of cool stuff coming up. But make sure you tune in for that Tower of Babel episode. It's going to be a good one, guys. And Bronson, go ahead and send us out, brother.
That's it, bro. Thank you very much for you guys hanging out with us this evening, this morning, wherever you are, whatever time of day. We appreciate you, and we hope you have a good rest of your day. And we will see you next time on Ancient Echoes.